Welcome back, everyone. Hey, thank you for joining us for another edition of the LFG podcast. Today we have Lynne Shelton, partner at Shelton Law and Associates. I have known Lynne for the longest time and so happy to have her on, shedding some great knowledge and information, and super excited to get her on. But we'll wait for that. Leanne. We have our co-host here, Leanne. Leanne, how you doing? How's your week? You look a little bit tan there, Leanne.
Oh my gosh. We were just fighting earlier about who's tanner, and obviously it's not me.
Listen, I have been in the sun for about 4 weeks straight, so
I have too.
Oh. I was gonna say I don't think you could, but yes, you have been. Oh my gosh.
I know. We talked about this on the last episode too, but I am tan for me. But looking at you in this bright yellow shirt, if you're watching on YouTube, he is so way tanner. And I can't even claim tan. But yeah, no, my week is good. I had a good week. It was nice and productive and got a lot done this week.
Good. That's great.
Nothing exciting. Oh, except my birthday. But other than that.
Oh, there you go. So I wonder. Well,
It's Leo season, you know?
It is Leo season. That's right. All you self-centered Leos.
That's why the people always ask what our franchise assembly logo is. And it's a lion because we're both Leos and we both couldn't agree on a lion. So our self-centeredness, we each have our own half.
And what a phenomenal logo it is. I mean, I gotta say, I love that thing. I mean, and it looks nice on a t-shirt.
It does look nice on a t-shirt. What did you
Tell
do?
us tell us some exciting things about this show and tell segment, Leanne.
Oh, the show and tell segment. So we have Lynne, as you just mentioned. She talks about a lot of good information. One of the big ones is the FDD item 19 and why brands don't include it and why that's a mistake and probably not compliant. She also talks about AI generated images and trademark and copyright laws and the new privacy laws that don't only apply to marketing, but to your employees. So she's got a lot of great information. So if we don't bore you before then, at least fast forward to get to Lynne's part. It's really good.
Hey, 30 minutes or 40 minutes of free legal. I mean, who doesn't want that?
That's right. That's good.
All right. Well, let's get to it. Here's what's growing on. This segment is sponsored by Franchise Assembly, a franchise events company bringing resources and education to franchise brands and people and podcasts.
All right. So one of our favorite brands, Michael Browning, owner of Urban Air Adventure and Unleash Brands, but Urban Air Adventure Park has announced a new attraction that will start rolling out across the country. It's Urban Air Adventure Slides. I saw this a while ago and I was super excited about it. My kids love Urban Air. But the slides will debut in August at 2 parks in Texas and then start to roll out nationally over the course of the year. The innovative and patent pending designs include the Surf, Scoop, Racer, Launch, and Tube slides. Have you ever been to Urban Air?
I have not. I was very close to getting to one in Dallas last year, but some things changed, so I wasn't able to get to it, but I am certainly going to visit it. I don't think they have any locations in Canada, do they?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't heard of any, but maybe they do. We're going to have to look that up. Sorry, Michael, if you're listening. We love you. I got something. So, I mean, I don't know who hasn't seen this on TikTok. Maybe it's not on your FYP, but for some reason it constantly comes to mind, and I don't know why. It's not that I don't like Chipotle or wouldn't eat it, but I don't. So I'll have to get to that too. But so what I'm talking about is Chipotle being under fire for inconsistent portion sizes. Leanne, has that come up on your TikTok? No, not really.
I don't really use TikTok.
Oh, she did mention it was her age. We won't go back to her birthday. Just kidding. Yes. So, they're very inconsistent. Their small portion sizes are all over the place, and so they're kind of under fire for that. Their CEO Brian Nickel has emphasized to investors that generous portion sizes are a core brand equity at Chipotle, and the complaints are all being addressed. But it doesn't seem to have affected them much. They've reported a strong quarterly earnings with an 8.7% increase in restaurant traffic and a net income of 455 plus million compared to 341 plus at the same time last year. And yeah, it was just funny because all these TikToks are about when they go and they show up with their phones. They said that management was instructing them to make the portions larger because, of course, it's shared on all of social
Oh.
media. And so people are literally going into every Chipotle with their phone like this because then they get a massive portion size. Whereas when they don't have their phone, they'll get that little portion size that I was talking about a little bit earlier.
Oh, maybe I'll go to Chipotle for lunch with my phone.
There you go.
Well, it doesn't seem to have affected them. I guess
No,
all media is good media in some cases.
totally. I mean, who doesn't like Tex-Mex? Like, it's delicious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No?
Yeah. All right. This has nothing to do with franchising. But I just think it's hysterical and stupid. But Elon Musk says he will fight Mark Zuckerberg any place, anytime, any rules again.
Did that
It
resurface? I remember hearing that a little while ago.
resurfaced. Yeah. So the billionaires went back and forth on social media last summer about setting up a potential cage match, which never materialized. Zuck responded, "Are we doing this again?"
Yeah, that's kind of
Who do you
funny.
take?
I have more of an affinity to Elon Musk. I don't know. I when this originally surfaced, I think I heard that Zuckerberg was a more of he had a black belt or something, or he was in some
Oh,
form of boxing or MMA or I
yeah.
don't know what, but I can't verify because I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, if he's got that background, then that's one thing. But I think Elon Musk will destroy him.
Hopefully he does.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's not actually ever going to happen, but it's funny.
Yeah, yeah, first world problems. Okay, and transform your business with Stay in Your Lanes AI for Business 1.0. This exclusive event designed for franchise brands will guide you through the next evolution of your brand, our expert-led curriculum. Join us for a 3-part class on September 20th, September 27th, and October 4th at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time to dive deep into AI and propel your business into the future. Don't miss out. Register now on Eventbrite.
I actually took this class and it's really good. I took this class and the Frandev for AI.
Did you?
I
Is that
learned a
what you were
lot
talking about with
with
that I
Lynn.
heard you were saying you did it with Leanne or Leanne, you're with Lynn? You were
You're
saying
really
you
struggling
took some
today.
courses, and I told you Lynn, when we had Lynn on, and you were like, yeah, you took a
Yes.
course with her, and
Yes, we took the same class together. It's a really good class. It's if you don't know anything about AI, even if you do know a little bit, they've got a lot of great tools and resources that they share. And then especially the Frandev for AI is really good. So there's like a whole sales piece, but then there's also the Frandev marketing piece of using AI. So it's
oh,
really, really good class.
oh, that's good because I for a second there I thought you were hosting it. I mean, you just made me read with our expert-led curriculum, and I'm like, our expert-led curriculum. What the hell is she talking about? He's like, I
You
don't
know, maybe if you
know.
prepared before we started this podcast, you could.
Wow. Oh my gosh, throwing
All
me under
right.
the bus.
If you want to share what's going on in your world, send us an email to podcast@franchiseassembly.com and we can butcher that too. All right. Let's go to Franchise Royals. This segment is sponsored by Northeast Color. Northeast Color specializes in brick and mortar branding solutions for the multi-unit and franchise industries. Their years of experience producing branded interior and exterior signage for national chains of all sizes and varieties ensures that your locations will launch on time and on budget, maintaining brand consistency with an eye toward maximum impact.
Oh,
Michael,
yes, Leanne, my
who
franchise
is
royal.
who is your franchise royal
You
this
know,
week?
you Leos, man, you always have to take the limelight, You ruined everything because you were gonna be my franchise royal. And I guess
Oh,
still are going to be because I know it was your birthday a
oh,
little bit ago, and then of course you had to go and spill the beans that it was your birthday. But Leanne, you are definitely a royal to everyone in franchising and everyone that knows you. You consistently are always helping everyone and sharing good information and being out there and everything you do with marketing and supermarketing. And just kidding. And running this company the way you do, and fantastic. Wishing you a wonderful belated birthday. I did wish you on your birthday,
you did.
but kudos to you.
Thank you. That's very sweet. Let me straighten my crown.
Yeah. Who's your franchise
That's
royal?
really nice. Thank you. My franchise royal this week is Kristen Pahacek. I finally, after several years, got to pronounce her last name right. But she is the CEO of Massage Lux. She is celebrating 4 years at Massage Lux, and I've just first of all, if anybody knows Kristen, they love her. But she recently, within the last year, was CMO and then got promoted to president, and she's just doing an amazing job. And so I think she's really found her home, and I'm so proud of her. We love her.
Love
Yay,
her.
Kristen.
Awesome. Hi, Kristen.
Hey, Kristen.
Okay, so before we head into our show and tell segment, here is a message from our friend Karen Wenning at Subtle Strauss.
Franchisors love Subtle Strauss because we protect their brand standard across all marketing channels. Z's love our marketing platform because they can customize, print, download, and mail brand right collateral for their local market in minutes. Want to see how it works? Connect with me, Karen Wenning, on LinkedIn.
All right, so let's move on to the show and tell segment. As we all know, show and tell is where our guests drop some fantastic franchise knowledge around their industry. In this case, we're going to have some amazing legal takes, best practices, ideas, thought leadership, all that great stuff. Leanne, who do we have on today?
Well, I'm very excited that we have Lynne Shelton from Shelton Law and Associates. Lynne is an active participant in our masterminds, and she had so much great information to share at the last Fort Worth mastermind that I wanted to bring her on as soon as possible so she could keep dropping the knowledge. But Lynne, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience in franchising?
Sure. So I have a lot of experience in franchising, or at least a lot of longevity. I've been in the franchise industry in one way or another for over 33 years now. Started out my career as a franchisor with my husband. We grew our brand to over 780 franchisees across the country before we sold it off, and started doing business consulting. And my son actually wanted to be an attorney first. So he joined a teenage court to do actual teenage cases. And so when I took him to his practices, I was hanging out with judges and attorneys, and they said, if you really want to be a business counselor, then you need to be an attorney. And that kind of planted the seed. And so my second career was I went back to law school. And while there, found an amazing franchise attorney that wanted to be a professor. And I took his class, one of the very first in the country on franchise law, and helped him to actually write the first textbook on franchising for other attorneys to come. And when he retired, he just kind of said, take my clients, you've been doing them anyway, and start your own firm. And so I just really, God has just kind of led me through the path to where I am today. And, we work with franchisors and franchisees, and I just love it. It's my home.
That's so interesting because now your son is not an attorney And he's on the franchisor side.
Exactly. I taught him well.
Switch.
He worked at the law firm for quite a while though, as our office manager, and so he's just doing what he told others to do. So it's really cool.
That's a great story.
Totally awesome. I was just chatting with him a couple of days ago. That's great. Well, hey, I mean, I've known Lynne for almost a decade now. Lynne is also, to add to that, very well renowned around the franchise show circuit. When time allows, Lynne joins the franchise shows and comes to many cities all across the country. Well, not necessarily Lynne, but her team, and then Lynne sometimes too. Always dropping a lot of knowledge at a lot of the seminars as well that happen on the franchise show floor. Super impressive, Lynne. So let's get started. We're going to start today with a super hot topic, the item 19. The item 19, of course, is an important part of the FDD. So first, can you explain what it is and why it's important, but really why some brands choose not to include it? And is that really smart?
Yeah, no. The answer to that question is no, it is not smart. Yeah, absolutely. So item 19 is the financial performance representations, is what it is called in the FTC rule. And of course, every FDD has to be drafted in exactly the terminology that our government tells us it has to be. So they're all going to be called, item 19 is always going to be the same. And basically with item 19 with our current rule states that you have two options. The first option is that you can put in two verbatim paragraphs that say you have the right to put in a financial performance representation. This is the governing body, which is the FTC and the Federal Trade Commission. And if you're told something that isn't in this FDD, then call them at this number. And then the second paragraph says basically, and we've chosen not to put in any information. And so that's the first option that a franchisor has. And prior to the current rule, which came out and started in 2008, the rule was slightly different. And there was a lot of liability if a franchisor put in a financial performance representation. They could really be attacked and sued, and it was kind of an ugly scene. And so a lot of older franchise systems did not have one, even though they were large. I mean, we can look still to this day at some of the bigger franchise systems that were around in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s that did not have one because the liability was too large, and the franchise attorneys, counseled their clients not to do it. But in 2008, it really changed, and they took away a lot of the liability and switched it and said you can only talk about financial performance representations if it is in item 19. And so now the liability comes if you talk about anything with a number or a percent, or it leads to a percentage or a number, and it's not contained in the FDD, you can actually have a lot of liability there. And I don't think that a lot of people understand that, even in the sales and the fran dev world, is that it's not just if you state something that has a dollar sign or a percent sign, attached to it. It's if it leads or you're alluding to that, it can still be a violation. But they also put, some safeguards around it, because before the new rule, you could kind of cherry pick who you put in the FDDs. Like, these are my top three, and I'm just going to show people that because that's who I really want, for them to be like. And so, this is kind of a backdoor goal. Minimum sales is if I show you just these people, then you'll obviously strive for that, and that will be when you feel like you're doing good enough after you start. And they were leaving out the failing ones. They were leaving out the ones that the franchisees were more, satisfied with having a smaller grow sales. There's a lot of people that get into franchising not to get rich, but just to have additional supplemental income, and that can obviously change the dynamics of what is shown in an item 19 as well. But now, under the new rule, you have to show every location that a franchise system has if they've been open for 1 year or longer. So, you don't get to exclude somebody just because they're not following the system, or, you have to be more vigilant of sending default notices if somebody's not following the system, because that's going to directly lead to them sharing their financials. You have to send, default notices if somebody doesn't give you the information like they're supposed to, their annual P&Ls, or if they don't have that ability, to do that with the system and the POS and things that they have in place. And that's kind of the problem we're seeing with some of these larger brands, is that and brands that have a really long term. So we have brands that have transferred in and stuff that have like a 20-year franchise agreement, which is great from the franchisee side, because it gives you, the best aspect of getting a return on your investment. However, if you don't have in that franchise agreement the ability to change what reports you wanted back then you can't require them to give you those reports or that financial data to be able to supply it in item 19. And if you didn't require them to use the same POS, or you haven't gone back to do that good fight to make sure that everybody's using the same system so you can pull those system reports, then you're not necessarily getting everyone's information. And so that's really, in most cases, what we see is that franchisors that don't have an item 19 isn't necessarily because they don't want one. Most franchisors do want one. It's just whether or not they can comply with the law of having everyone that's a year old or older information to be able to put it into the item 19.
Gotcha. And now, is there a guideline around the financial performance of what or how you state it? Like, is there a regulation? Because I know some will include 25% of the system. And so now, are you saying that anything that's within 1 year needs to be reported? Wow, I did not know that.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of illegal or non-legally compliant FDDs out there. I'll just put it that way. So basically, yeah, 1 year older. And the other aspect of it is that I think there's a lot of misnomer in regards to what also can be in item 19. And oftentimes we just see like averages and medians, which that's required, so that's a required information that has to be in there. You can slice it and dice it as it makes sense to your brand, to the franchisor brand. And I always tell people, and this is, I'm obviously a weird duck because of where I started at. I'm not just a normal attorney, and what we do is a lot of counseling as well as legal. But the FDD is the only thing that every one of the prospects for the franchisor gets to see. They may or may not see your website as much as somebody else. They may or may not get a brochure or talk to your best salesperson, or the best validation franchisee or whatever. But every single one of them is going to see the FDD. So the FDD really needs to tell the story of the franchise system. And with item 19, I like to tell my franchisors, we're going to make it sexy. And by that, I mean, it really needs to show what it is that they can do with your system. And it's meant to be so that the franchisees and the prospective franchisees and their financial advisors and accountants can put together a business plan and see what is true potential in this market if you follow this system, and how much profitability is there actually in this. And from a marketing perspective, going forward with the franchisees, you should be able for them to sit down and go, okay, if I have this entire product line to offer, and I have some products that are loss leaders to get people in the door, and I have others that are, super profitable, what do I want to actually advertise? What do I want to push once they come through the door or once I enter into their home? What is going to be the most profitable, still providing a good service, obviously, or a good product. But a lot of that information is missing from most franchise systems item 19. Like they just put in like, this is P&Ls, this is my average, this is my median. Okay, that's required. Check, moving on. And they're missing a huge opportunity to tell more of their story. I'm looking at the alcohol behind you, Michael, right now. And everybody knows there's a huge profit in those drinks, right? And franchise systems that have bars in them, they have exact measurements of how much alcohol to put in a mixed drink, right? So it's not just a splash unless the bartender has a lot of experience and knows how to know that measurement specifically. But there's usually requirements of exactly how much, because they know that profit margin will be exactly what they intend for it to be. Same thing is true with really any other business. And so it doesn't have to just be gross sales numbers. It doesn't have to be, just pieces of that required information. It can be, I like to do the 10-year projection based upon historical numbers. That's really fun to show people. It's like, yeah, if you just stay on track based on the current growth model, you're going to net somewhere around $2 million if you follow the system, of the things that, minus your expenses of the things that you get to decide upon, or whatever the case may be. And that gives a prospective franchisee much more idea of how much estimated initial investment and return on that investment that they can get. And they can compare those two numbers between item 7 and item 19. And that's really what it's designed to do.
That's great. So what I heard you say is there's some bad players in franchising who are ill-advising franchisor clients. Well, that's not what
you
I heard.
had to just
That's
pick
what I
up
said.
on that one.
All right, we're going to switch gears. But here's another good one that's a hot topic right now about non-competes. Are non-competes dead in franchising? So we have a federal ruling now. So what does that mean for us?
So no, the quick answer is no, it's not dead in franchising. It is dead on the employment situation. So it's dead for our franchisees. Okay, they cannot do non-competes for the franchisees. But for franchisees employees, let me go back. It is dead for the franchisees employees, not for the franchisees. So for your franchisee, your franchise agreement, and I think every single one of them, I've never seen one that doesn't have a non-compete in their franchise agreement or attached to it as an exhibit. And usually it is also for the designated manager, whoever that is. So if you've got an absentee franchisee, but you've actually got a manager that's running the business day to day, currently the law extends to them as well. And so the non-compete provisions are still being upheld in every district. For you can rest assured that it will be upheld for any type of system for up to 2 years and up to 25 miles from the original location, or something comparable to what their territory was. Depending upon, because some systems have really large, they can have state territories, so it could be much larger. Or from that distance from any existing franchisee. So not only can they not be in wherever their location was and do the same thing, but they can't go move next to another franchisee and start a competing business either. And that's, because they've been taught all of this proprietary information and the trade secrets and, sometimes the recipes and everything else. But what smart franchise attorneys are suggesting is that, we just take our documents that we've always used, that we've required our franchisees to get of their employees, and we turn it into non-solicitations. So yeah, they can go get a job at another, pizza place or pet, sitting place or whatever, whatever brand they were in, but they can't come back and steal our customers. They can't come back and steal our employees, and that's really the harm. And then you combine that with the non-disclosure, which they, stays with them afterwards. They can't talk about any of those trade secrets or any of the recipes that they know about to their other, new employer. So we're still in a good place in franchising, even though, this law has come out federally. It really should not hurt franchise systems as long as they've pivoted and, and made the modifications and things. But if you see an FDD that still has a non-compete in it, it's not legally compliant now.
Good information. That's great. So speaking of in a good place in franchising, and not everyone, but financials of existing brands seem to have gotten worse. Some are even upside down. What do you think about that? Is this franchising tanking, or where are we at with that?
No, but it can scare a lot of people, including this year. It's been scaring some state examiners as well. So, yeah, we had a brand transfer over to us that has literally had locations since the 60s. And when we did their registration renewals this year, we had several state examiners come back and want a financial assurance clause added to their FDD and to their franchise agreement, or not collect fees until after the franchisee opened and stuff. And everybody was in shock because there's, hundreds of locations out there. And so I had to do quite a bit of education around this as well. So basically what has happened is it was not a franchise law change, but it affected franchising as well as many other business industries. So it came from the accounting world, and the intention of the accounting law was that our financials and our audits would be more in line with international auditing principles, so that as brands are going across different countries and they're expanding across the world, they could get an audit and that formula would be good in every country. So that was their goal. It kind of backfired on everybody. It's not being accepted everywhere. However, it still left us with the rule. And basically what it is a rule that, the code was initially ASC 606. And the accounting standards code. And so basically, if you have an agreement that is over a long period of term that the party cannot satisfy until a longer period of time, over 1 year, then you have to take any income that comes in and amortize it over that period of time. So, for example, if you've got a 10-year franchise agreement and they pay a $30,000 initial fee to be a franchisee, then under this rule, then they can only take 1/10 of that $30,000, so $3,000, and show that as income in year one. And they can show $3,000 in year 2 and $3,000 in year 3, etc. So the whole $30,000 is spread out over that 10-year. Now the balance of that money is shown as a liability on the balance sheet, as if the franchisor has not earned it yet, that it's something that is still out there that you haven't earned. And the franchisor, they actually received all $30,000 in their bank account. They've paid, in many cases, 50 to 60% out as a commission to salespeople and other things. And so, they've got, yes, money coming in, expenses going out, but they've still got this huge liability over there. So and when you look at the financials of a franchisor, especially ones that are very active, that are awarding a lot of franchises every year and are growing and receiving transfer fees and those types of things, they went upside down, like massively upside down on their financials. And so it looks like that they are super in debt and overextended and all these terrible things. And it was because of the funding being tied to that franchise fee. Now, there is ways around it. I won't share that on air because that's my proprietary information that we have come up with. But there is ways to not have that happen to a system. But that's why all these financials, if you just look at a franchise system, you're like, what do you mean it's minus $800,000, on your audits this year? That's probably why, is they probably have had to amortize the majority of their income that the franchisor actually gets to be amortized over a longer period of time. And, if you think about what a franchise company actually takes in, they take in initial franchise fees, transfer fees, renewal fees, yes, royalties, but it's, the royalties themselves typically are supposed to be tied to research and development and the support. So those are supposed to kind of wash as they grow. So really the only income that they're looking at is really those initial fees and the renewals and that type of thing that's true income. And if you take 90% of that away the first year, 80% of it the second year, et cetera, of course they're going to look upside down.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been fun.
So that, I'm guessing that causes a lot of concern to candidates. But there's a way to explain it away. It sounds like. Ish.
So some of the good franchise development people understand it. Sadly, a lot of prospective franchisees don't look at the financials of the franchisor. It always baffles my mind when I hear that from a franchisee. They discover it like 2 years after they've been into the system or something now or something, and it's just like, oh, you didn't look at okay, sure. You didn't look at the FDD. That's probably not a wise decision.
Yeah.
But it does, for those that are looking, it does take a lot of education and for them to understand. And, and we can kind of show them, where to look so that they can counterbalance, and be able to see what the real numbers would have been pre-2020, 2020 was not a good year for many reasons, but that's also one of them. That's when it started.
Oh boy. All right, switching gears again, I'm going to go to marketing, but I think this applies across the board, not just marketing. So there's a lot of changing privacy laws and how that affects us using customer info across brands to market. Consent language provides for it, but the rules are changing. The customers' wants change with it. This applies to both email marketing and also digital retargeting, mail, et cetera. So can you tell us more about the changing landscape and how we should be handling? Because this is really important for all brands.
It is so important for all brands. So obviously I think that most brands are pretty knowledgeable in regards to the marketing side of it. You've got to comply with the email campaigns and et cetera. And so I won't spend a whole lot of time there, but the part that really where most brands are missing when they're keeping themselves open to liability right now is the consent of the franchisee and their employees. And this is really, we're going to have some litigations in the future around this, because this is really a cross section between control of the franchisor and the franchisee versus, protecting the franchisor from not being able to be sued if the franchisee doesn't do what they're supposed to do. But a lot of privacy laws are not just extending to the customer. Okay, it's extending to our employees. And so, a lot of things technology wise that have come into place that is supposed to make our lives better, easier, faster. Specifically dealing with POS systems is the first one that has come to light because it's easy to target, easy to see in every brand. We've seen brands. We've walked into stores and seen the employee just swipe a badge, or now there's retina scanners. It's like, okay, you're an employee that should have authorization to the computer, so it will open up. We've got iPads that use fingerprints as well as face recognition, and all of those things link to privacy laws. So your fingerprint is yours, your retina is yours, and if somebody takes the information based upon you as a person and then uses it to manipulate it or to pull reports or whatever, then if you haven't given your consent, that's a violation of many laws these days. And the attorney generals and the security counselors in different states, who's in charge of this area in the various states, is really starting to act on this, because of the fact that the employees and the customers are starting to reach out and go, hey, I didn't give my permission for my information to be shared with these other sister companies or whatever. And so you've got a twofold scenario. You've got from a franchisor perspective, have to have in your franchise agreement that they're giving their consent, the franchisee, and you have to require that your franchisees get the consent of every one of their employees for this information if they're going to use these products that is utilizing things that are private to the human, like these retina and fingerprints and face recognition and all of those things, because otherwise you're going to be in violation. Secondly to that, and just as important, is that the franchisors, franchise attorneys need to be involved when you're signing these vendor agreements for these different things that will end up utilizing these items. So many times franchisors, and I've heard even my own clients tell me, oh, well, it was easy. They don't really negotiate. It's just their standard agreement. It's what we want to use. So we signed it. And we're like, don't do that. But they really need to get involved so that, they are prohibited from actually utilizing the data that comes into that system to be pooled with anything else or used for any other purpose of that software company or that vendor's purpose. So not even that the franchisors are misusing it, but maybe the vendor is misusing it. But because it came through the franchisor and the franchisor doesn't have that legal blockade to say, no, we told them not to, they're going to be held liable for it. It's kind of like it matters who you hang with, and we're told when we're teenagers. The same is true with vendors. There's some unscrupulous vendors out there that just worried about growing their brand and they want to use it, to talk about it. And you got to be careful. I mean, it's, we all know we live in a litigious world, and everybody that knows me knows that I don't really like litigators, but I have a lot of friends that are that way. I just don't like what they do. I try to prohibit all litigation, like really hardcore. But I mean, we live in a litigious world, and especially if an employee becomes disgruntled and leaves the company or something, they'll take advantage of things, and they'll know. That's the other thing with the times that we live in with social media and all the information that everybody has. People know what's right and what's wrong and what people should be doing and shouldn't be doing, and they will use that to their advantage every single time, especially when they feel they've been harmed, whether in reality they were doing their job or not when they got fired. So you just have to really protect yourself and be cognizant of new laws like these privacy laws that are coming out, and look at it not just from the perspective of marketing, because that's what we've talked about for so long, is just in the marketing realm, but it's really so much more than that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean, we could see. I mean, I'm not going to get political, but yeah, we can definitely see that on the landscape of things being used that are correct and not correct. So one more question for you, Lynn, centered around a hot topic, AI, as going around as always. So does using an AI generated image require a trademark or copyright checks of any sort?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So, AI is awesome. I love AI. I love it even more after taking AI for business class with Leanne, actually,
Yes.
um, last month and the month before. I had no idea how great AI was, honestly, like in an everyday life thing. But back to your question. So, AI is artificial intelligence, and the way that they build it is by teaching it information. And so, they've created these large language models, these LLMs as they call them in the industry, that has gone out and it scrubs the web. They feed it encyclopedias. They have it, continue to look for authenticated information on the internet. So there's information that it's gathering is information that it's been taught. And yes, it's getting to the point where it can put, 2 and 2 together to get 4, even though 2 and 2 was initially 2 pieces of separate information. But that information that was the 2 and 2 might be somebody's brand, right? It might be a logo that it's pulling 90% of that logo to create a new logo, or to create a new marketing campaign, or to, steal language that's a protected slogan off of somebody's website. And so you absolutely need to continue to do the checks for both copyright and trademark searches and trademarkability searches and stuff before you do those marketing campaigns. Because especially if you're doing a new campaign and you're like, we're going to make this the centerpiece of what we're doing. Definitely don't want to do that. Probably less likely, less scary if it's just a sentence in a marketing piece or something, but it still can lead to violations. We see franchisees, franchisors both getting cease and desists from other companies because of this exact thing. It just started really happening over the last couple of months. And people are tuning in even more to the fact that the information is not automatically new just because it was created by AI, and oftentimes it's not new. It is exactly, pulling from things that it already knows. And, depending upon what it pulls, it can be a direct violation. It can cross that border into an infringement. And the infringement laws are very steep. I mean, if you did it knowingly, in some states, it can be 3 times the amount of damages. And if damages are looking at the amount of income you made from that marketing piece, and we're talking about, it could be billions of dollars, literally, to rack up really quick, or it could just be a couple $100s, right? So I mean, it's a huge variation. But it is something that does need checks, just like when you have an in-house person that is your creative director and they're creating new things. When they hand it off to the marketing director, I pray to God that they are checking before they start using it to make sure that somebody else didn't have that idea first. We've come from a very kind of stilled, quiet time through COVID and ramping back up and stuff. And a lot of people worked from home, and the head of the United States Patent and Trademark Office, has told us again and again since that time that more people were creating and thinking up ideas and trademarking them and copywriting them at the Library of Congress and stuff than ever before in history. They are so backed up with registrations that they're not even assigning files to an examiner. Like an examiner doesn't even see it after you file it for like 9 months, because that's how far they're backed up right now. And so, I mean, we really have to do a due diligence, no matter who created the piece.
So I'm assuming, I mean, obviously this applies to copy too. I know so many people are starting to use AI for blogs and copywriting. And so they've got to do plagiarism checks, I'm sure. And I know Google is, thumbs downing AI copy on blogs and so on. So use it as a foundation, as a go by, or, as inspiration, but don't use the whole thing, especially. And if you are going to use it, I guess check for plagiarism. Same goes with images and design and stuff.
Absolutely, Leanne. Yeah, you bet.
All right.
What about LinkedIn posts?
What about LinkedIn?
You can't plagiarize and copyright and trademark infringe there either.
Hey, Lynn, I saw your elevator pitch that you did through AI. That was pretty cool on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it was cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a cool idea. So all of that to say, I know we bounced around a lot with a lot of different topics, and people have asked me before, and just kind of collecting legal questions. And so thank you for answering them. And if people wanted to find more about you and watch your AI elevator pitch, how could they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn at Lynne Shelton. They can also go to my website, lynneshelton.com. Lynn is with an E, L-Y-N-N-E. And our website is sla.law. Nice and short.
Thank you so much, Lynn, for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, you bet. Thanks for having me. Good to see you guys.
You too.
You too. Great information. That was fantastic.
That's good.
Leanne?
Yes.
Did you learn something new today from Lynn?
I learned a lot of new things from Lynn. Well, legal's not my thing anyway. So thank goodness there's people like Lynn out there, and good people who are doing the right thing by a franchise brand. So yeah, I mean, the AI stuff continues to overwhelm me, but all of that is new information. So that's great to know. What did you learn?
I learned a lot, but where this has kind of led my head to going is, centering around back to the FDD topic and the item 19, and just the sales process of how shocking it is. And I guess it shouldn't be so shocking that maybe people don't look at the financial performance when they're buying. So it makes me think about, how are people selling these franchise systems? Me, of course, being on the supplier side of things, I'm never really in the franchise sales hot seat. I mean, good or bad, I don't know. I'm not accusing anyone. I'm not. It's interesting that someone could buy something. And so maybe for us, because we're in the franchise industry, we know what an item 19 is, we know what to look for in all the different items on the FDD. But obviously someone maybe who's brand new and thinking of buying a franchise, maybe they don't even know that an FDD exists, right? I guess it's not, it's not necessarily not common sense. They just don't know, or, haven't gotten that far, but it really kind of opens your head up a little bit to think about all those interesting things.
Yeah. Very.
Anyways, so for all those that maybe this is the first time on, if you like what you heard, as always, please drop us a 5-star review. It does help us to grow, and subscribe to us on Spotify and on YouTube. We will see you in a couple of weeks with a bit more unfiltered information and education on both sides of the border. In the meantime, here's what's on the calendar in our final segment, Franchise Mingle, brought to you by the National Franchise Show. Leanne, take it away. What do you have on the docket?
I'm taking it over for you. All of your events. All right. So save the date for these fall franchise shows. Tampa, September 14th and 15th, which is my personal favorite. At the same time, the Toronto Franchise Show will be happening. Philadelphia in September, Atlanta and Jackson October, and LA in November. And then in DC in September, we'll be at the IFA Advocacy Summit, Franchise Springboard in September, FBR's Operations Summit in Denver in October. We have a busy fall, huh? And then Let's Grow in Canada. We are now taking registrations and sponsorships. We only have a few content sessions left. So that's November 6th and 7th in Toronto. And then we've got Let's Grow in Dallas, February 2nd through 4th. Registration is open, and we're also taking sponsorships. And believe it or not, even at the time of this recording, we only have a few content sessions left for sponsorships. Very exciting.
Sounds like a heck of a fall.
I'm tired already. Lynn, are you going to any of those?
You bet. Several of the. I wish I could go to all of them, but I also do, travel to South Africa each year, so I'm gonna miss some of the September ones. But yeah, you gotta hang out with your people, right? I mean, that's where we go. So
right. We got some good
I
ones
look
coming
forward to
up.
seeing everyone there.
Yeah,
exactly.
me too.
And for those of you that don't know what Let's Grow is, it is a franchise development and marketing conference where you can get a lot more education and content, just like Lynn was educating us on. A phenomenal 2-day event where we delve into everything fran dev and marketing that relates to growing your franchise business. And so our Toronto conference is meant for Canadian franchise brands, and our US conference meant for US brands. Of course, there is some cross-border, but there are regulations and legalities that are different on both sides of the border. So always good to get both sides. This episode is brought to you by Northeast Color, Subtle Strauss, the National Franchise Show, and Franchise Assembly. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Thanks, Lynn.
Bye.